Welcome, everybody, to 8192 The Truth. My name is Lad Supernon. We are live in Portland, Oregon. It is my pleasure to introduce to you my dad, Joel, the Godfather Supernon.
All right, guys. Like I had mentioned yesterday, Lad shot a whole video, a whole podcast, about an hour, on autism, but we didn't get to record it. So what we're going to do now is I'm basically going to interview him. And then he is also going to do what Brother Sin does is Beyond the Truth. And he's going to talk more in detail. There's a lot of parents out there that have questions, that have young children that are on the spectrum. Lad has helped a lot of those parents. They were into Chael's show. You're welcome. And now they listen to us. So it is my hope as a parent with somebody that has pretty much made it through the spectrum. I mean, his quirks and the way he processes information. He's a regular teenager. They're none of them are. I'll take Lad and his autism label over the rest of them because they're all teenagers, man. They're young children. Their hormones are growing. They're all over the board. We know what it was like. So. One of the good things about Miss H not listening to the show is I can tell a funny story and she won't bust us. So me and Chael used to break Lad out of school quite a bit when he was younger. We break him out all the time, you know. Well, I broke him out today for the first time. There was an hour and a half left. Well, Miss H is the superior detective. As a matter of fact, we came to Stafford Hills Club now because I broke him out, took him to a movie, and we know if she's gonna sniff us out and she's gonna bust us, and then the world will come to an end because I got my kid out of school an hour early. And sure enough, we're on the way to the gym, and she calls and she was like, "Lad, you were marked absent." And she started in on us. Lad he played it off. But again, you didn't lie, did you?
No, I was never late for any classes. He just broke me out early. I didn't know about this. I thought it was just going to be a regular day. And a hot girl just ended up with blonde hair. I don't know her name, but just ended up saying, "Lad, here's a note." Saying,
the hottie came and got you out of class.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, there's nothing wrong with that, right?
No.
Okay.
I never knew about any of this, so yeah.
So he was in the clear. Well, she'll eventually find out, but she won't find out through the podcast. As a matter of fact, Chael will probably tattle once he hears this. When he tattles on me through Miss H, I don't get as much of a beating. I get shorter beatings, like beating. It'll come back up, beating, and then when I think it's all done, she'll give me another beating. So anyway, I took Lad to a movie today, and one of the things about autism is autism is a social and communicative disorder, and one of the things about Lad's humor is it's so literal. Like sometimes the truth is the funniest thing in the world because, quite frankly, we don't want to look straight in the middle of the truth. So I break him out of high school last period. I take him to a movie. He's going to go get popcorn, and I say, "I'm the best dad in the world." And his response is, "I love you, Poppy. I don't know why anybody else doesn't." And it was funny, but then, I'm like, well, no, people love me. And I'm starting to think, oh man, do dogs count? So, anyway, that was hilarious. I want to lead into this podcast with a quick story about my brother, because all I know about autism, the only thing I know about autism, quite frankly, is I've read a little bit about it, but my son, all I know in my life is my son. Well, my brother Leo, he was a Vietnam War veteran, won the Silver Star. He was a ranger, and he was in quite a few battles, and he had to do some some really tough things. Well, and he passed away several years ago. I've talked about him in the past. One family reunion we had, I got a chance to talk to him. And the two questions I asked him is I said, Leo, I love that line, no hill for a climber. And he said, yeah, Jojo, but you got to be the man to climb that hill. And the way he said that, I was like, oh, wow, that's a real thing. He had to climb hills after hills after hills to live in battle. And then the second thing I asked him was, hey, Leo, is it true that a ranger never leaves a fallen man down? And he pulled on his cigarette, and he said, I don't know, Jojo, but that's all I know in my life, which means that he didn't know anything other than what he did and what he witnessed. Well, it's the same kind of thing with Lad's autism. I'm not an authority on autism, but I'm a pretty good authority on my son. So the hope for this podcast is, quite frankly, for most of us are affected by autism in one way or another. The ones that don't know anything about autism literally think autism means retarded, or they think of Rain Man. Well, the spectrum's huge. So there's a great deal of you that are you're just going to tune it out because it hasn't affected your life. Then there's another big group of you, like, for instance, like Chael Sonnen, who, he's known Lad his entire life, and I always talked about autism, and Chael was like, I don't know why you talk about a weakness. And see, he never understood it until he got to know Lad more, until he got to spend more time with Lad, that it wasn't a weakness. It was just something that he had to deal with. And there's a group of you that are personally affected by it, where you have a child or a loved one on the autism spectrum, or somebody that does. Well, the ones that are in that category that knows somebody that does, I guarantee after this podcast, you're gonna want to reach out to those people. Lad was born 11
weeks early.
Almost 11 weeks early, and he weighed 3 pounds. Now, what you got to know about what a miracle Lad is Miss H. Again, she only has one leg. She only has one ovary. She was a high risk pregnancy, and we had gotten pregnant once, and we lost a child on 9/11. It was the worst day in the country's life, and it was the worst day in our life as well. Well, she was bound and determined to have a son. She was bound and determined to have a boy, and she was bound and determined to name him Lad. So we went to Hawaii in 2012.
2002.
Sorry, 2002. And thanks, Lad. In 2002, and we got pregnant. Jennifer got pregnant. I didn't. And Lad came, and so Jennifer was a high risk pregnancy. She, there was a time in the early on where she had to be put in the hospital and she had to get steroids. She was on her back for months. She couldn't do anything except be on her back. I remember back then there wasn't Wi-Fi, so I had the longest cord in the world. And we had a group of, I was running a car dealership at the time. We had a group of people that were on call. Whatever Miss H needed, you would go get it for Miss H. But she was bound and determined to see this thing through. And when he was born and when he came, that early, and he was only 3.5 pounds, it was really, really scary. I mean, it was really, really scary. But right from the start, right from the very start, the doctors told me, I came in, I could see his heart beating. It was crazy. It was in the NICU at St. Vincent's. And the doctor said, he is absolutely perfect. I remember those words. And I could see his little heart beating. I could see all his veins. So he made it through that rather quickly. He was only in the NICU for a month. They thought he would be there for 3 months. He got out and he came home, and he was a little delayed. I would say, in terms of I didn't see those things. The things that I would say is, man, he was born 11 weeks early. Man, give him a little time. Well, Jennifer had seen some things. She had seen some signs that a mother will see sooner than a father, and whether I was in denial or whatever. So we take him at 2.5 years of age to OHSU, and have him diagnosed. And I thought he nailed it. I thought he was fine. And he came back middle of the spectrum autistic. You're right, in the middle. Well, if he's in the middle today, he's still in special needs classes. He's not. So I'm bringing you there, and now I'm going to bring Lad in, and I'm going to ask him some questions. And again, Lad's going to have time to elaborate on this on his own episode. I guess the first thing I kind of want to ask you, Lad, is when did you understand us, but we didn't understand you? Do you remember things, do you remember stuff like that? Like when you were trying to explain something to us, but you couldn't talk?
Well, I never had a problem understanding my parents per se, but my mom would always encourage me to speak. Whatever I was asking for, if I was asking for, I was 3 years old. Whenever I was asking for juice, whenever I was asking for a snack, my blanket, or things that a toddler would need, she wouldn't. They would understand me, but I can remember my mom saying, "Hey, lad, that's really good talking," and I was just like, I just basically spoke gibberish or gobbledygook, and you call that awesome?
Okay, and I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that, because I'll circle back to that. So you remember the frustration of not being able to speak, and then you understand your mom telling you how awesome that is, and you're like, what are you talking about?
And I also want to say my dad, too. My parents have supported me to the fullest from the beginning. And ever since I was born, up until I was about 8 or 9, he still praises me a lot to this day. But every day of my life, whenever I'd see him, he'd say, "Lad, I am so proud of you. You are so amazing. I love you so much. You're just so smart. You're great you're just basically giving me the rub." And I didn't believe in that I was his hero. For a long, long time, it wasn't until recently that I believed that. I never believed that, because I was in special ed classes. I could barely what a lot of people don't know about me is that I was delayed in some things. I was delayed at speaking. I was delayed at making eye contact. I was delayed at a lot of milestones. But I was also really advanced in some ways. I could read fluently when I was around 2.5. I was bilingual at an early age. I spoke Spanish. I spoke more Spanish than I did English. When I was around 4 years old, my mom took me to a Spanish academy called Amiguitos, and I thrived there. I was amazing there. And the one thing that I could remember about that school is that every day, the teacher would give us lectures about Spanish, the same things they would teach kids now, the months of the year, clothes you put on, body parts or whatever, and I'd always see one kid crying because they would not understand things, and I tried to kind of say, hey man, what's wrong, and they wouldn't talk to me about it. But they were struggling, and I thrived there. I could also, I was obsessed with reading Dr. Seuss books as a little kid. My favorite books were Green Eggs and Ham and How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and I loved to read. I loved reading. It was kind of a way for me, because I was kind of in my own world a little bit.
Hold on, let me again, I'm going to give you all the time in the world to run through this. I want to kind of bring everybody along with us on that, because again, you can talk for days about this, and there's nothing wrong with that. When did you know you were different?
There was obviously signs. The first day of, when I was in elementary school the first time, I was expecting to be, nobody told me, I was expecting to be on the big bus with all the other kids. And in my early elementary school years, I still lived in the big house in Kilkenny Court. I'm sure my dad explained to you about that. I'll explain it to you more if he hasn't.
We'll let you can go into that on Beyond the Truth.
Okay, so basically, let me continue talking. I was in elementary school. My neighbor Haley, who goes to high school today, she's a year older than me. She's a sophomore. She had her little purse. She came to school. She went to school before me. She had her little purse, and she would get on the big bus with all the other kids, and I was just like, oh my God, I wish I was there with her. And my bus would come 30 minutes later, the bus that only has 5 kids in it. And that's when I knew. I was just like, why am I not up there? And I was basically segregated from society. It's not much different than racism in the 1950s and 60s, where black people were hated on.
That's interesting that you feel that, and I believe that's a huge talking point, because I don't want to get there yet, but I might as well. One of the things that Lad struggles with now a little bit is just getting accepted by everybody. The high school kids are all like that. Most of them are, but one of the things that he went through the special needs program, so a lot of kids just assume that Lad's he's special, and he's not. But that's very interesting that you have that point. One of the stories that broke my heart when you told me was the first day of kindergarten, and you thought you were getting on a rocket ship.
Okay, I'll explain to that. It was on September 2nd, 2008. I was waiting. My mom, for some reason, my mom didn't tell me about the bus or something. My mom didn't tell me anything, like I said before, about I was different and I needed to be in class. So I had an adult-sized backpack. I had a fire truck lunchbox. I remember that lunchbox to this day. And I knew I was waiting for something. I knew I was waiting for something. And another thing that I really liked as a little kid was TV shows, was cartoons. I would watch Dora the Explorer. I would watch Go Diego Go. I would watch Blue's Clues. All the shows from the early 2000s. And Little Einsteins. So I thought I was basically, from Little Einsteins, I was basically getting on Rocket from, the show. I'm sure you heard of that show before. I'm sure some of the kids, some of you autistic parents used to see your kids watching all these shows and stuff. Okay, enough of me rambling. So basically, I thought it was a rocket ship, and it was a little bus. There was 5 different kids in it who couldn't talk or anything. And I basically said 3, 2, 1, blast off. And the bus driver basically told me to shut up. She didn't say anything. She looked at me and thought I was the weirdest thing. She thought I was the worst thing in the world. She didn't actually say those things to me, but she basically told me to be quiet and basically to shut up. So
It's a good thing he couldn't have communicated. Imagine your 5-year-old special needs kid getting on a bus and the very first thing he does. That's the very first time I've heard that story. When you told me that story, I didn't know about the Blue's Clues and all that. I thought, and it was very emotional for me. I thought you thought it was a rocket ship, and you were willing to get on the rocket ship if it meant if you meant you were going to kind of be like the quote regular kids.
I would do anything, and that's the first time I really knew I was different. I was just like, you mother effing people thinking I'm special and thinking I'm dumber than everybody else. And I fought so hard. I fought with everything I had to get out of that class. I would throw major fits because I was in the special ed class and I wasn't accepted by everybody. They would treat me like I'm a god or something, and I was struggling the concept, am I really that special? But I couldn't do the things that most kids were doing.
Okay, so what you're saying is me, your mom, your teachers, everybody's like, "Oh, lad, you're doing so great. You're doing so great. You're doing so great," and you're like, "Oh my God, if I'm doing so great, why am I in here?" Mm-hmm. And that's why you couldn't believe us. I tell you, the powerful thing about all of that for me is. And for you too, man. If you're in this cycle, they understand. The big thing that pumps out at me again. This is the first time I'm hearing. Lad could understand everything we were saying. He just could not communicate with us. So we just needed to sit down and tell him, "Hey, lad, you're going to the special needs program. It doesn't mean you're not going to advance. We just didn't communicate with him." And he could understand us. That's pretty powerful. So one of the things that I didn't like is, and again, this is all I know in my life. This is my son, and this is not me trying to kind of disparage other children on the special needs spectrum. It's a tough thing, but one of the things for me that I struggle with was the Challenger series.
So basically, when I was around 8 years old, my dad introduced me to baseball. But before that, the only sport I ever really got in was briefly when I was around 5 or 6. My dad took me to the high school to kind of start wrestling a little bit. We would go to wrestling practice and stuff, and I loved it. I loved there was older kids that would kind of ragdoll me and beat me and because obviously I was a little boy. I was like 40 pounds and 5-6 years old. But I didn't mind it. I loved it.
No, what I was saying is the Challenger series for baseball and basketball.
I was going to get to that.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. So when I was around 8 years old, my dad, prior to when I was introduced to baseball, we were in band. It was at the beginning of 3rd grade. My dad and I just kind of randomly just threw the ball around, and I wasn't into it. I was 5 minutes later, I was inside. We were going to see Randy and Caden Couture, and I'm going to tell you about that in Beyond the Truth. I'm going to really kind of explain my life in Beyond the Truth. And I wasn't into it. But later, around almost my 9th birthday, it was in March 2012, me and my dad wanted to try it again. And I kind of developed a little bit, and because it was 8 months later or something, and I figured out I threw left-handed. We played catch for an hour. I think we played catch with some of my dad's friends, and his kids were older. I think they were in 5th grade or something. I don't know their names or anything, but I figured out I was left-handed. And I swung the bat for the first time. His dad kind of taught me how to stand in the box and taught me how to bend your knees and all that stuff. I was never really a power hitter, but I was a great contact hitter, connected on the ball.
You're missing.
I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to that in a little bit. I'm going to get to that right now, actually. I hate that you interrupt me. So later, a month later, my mom actually took me to this stupid challenger baseball thing. It was coach pitch. You hit the ball. I didn't we wouldn't they didn't position us anywhere like what a normal baseball would be. They didn't put us in the outfield or anything. And I was competing with kids that could barely speak. I was way advanced. I could speak. I didn't really have much problems. But I was competing with kids that didn't speak, that had a hard time following simple directions, just like more on the severe spectrum, like kids with Down syndrome and stuff. And even then, I kind of liked it. I kind of liked that I was hitting the ball, but I was just like, why am I even competing with them? Why can't I just go up with the regular kids? And a year later, when I was in 4th grade, I went to the regular baseball thing, and I'm going to tell you about my first at bat ever in the regular thing. My dad apparently thought it was coach pitch, but it was I think it was the first year that kids started pitching. It was my first at bat. I went up there. And obviously, kids this age, we were like 9, 10 years old. They can't control the ball. They can't throw strikes or anything like that. In the first at bat, I had a kid hit my head. It hit my helmet. I wasn't hurt or anything, but my heart felt like a ding. I felt I kind of just shook it off. I was angry. That's kind of when I figured out how tough I was. And I for the first time ever that year, the coaches were treating me like everybody else.
Okay.
The coaches were giving me, they were telling me the things I'm struggling with. They would, they still kind of treated me like I was special, but they would tell me things that I'm struggling with or things that I could do better. Okay,
perfect. And Len, I wasn't trying to cut you off. I'm just trying to walk you through this. Mm-hmm. Okay, I know it's tough to get through. I'm just trying to walk you through it. What the point I wanted to make, and you actually made it real well, was so not only were you forced into special needs school, the very first experience you have in athletics, again, you're being forced into the special needs group, and you, again, you can understand us, but we can't understand you. So you can't come to us and say, hey, why am I playing this? I should be in the regular baseball. So the next year or the year and a half, when you got hooked up with your first coach, which was Lane Cadell, you loved it because you knew, hey, they're treating me like everybody else for the first time in my life. See, that's the first time I've heard that. That's really, really cool. So your experience, that's one of the things you love so much about baseball is it's nobody's giving you an extra break. You know, you've done it all on your own. Is that adequate statement?
Yes. And they were telling me things that I could improve on and stuff. And for a second, I didn't like criticism because I was so used to everybody telling me, oh, you're so great and all that stuff. But now people are finally telling me, hey, you're not that great. And, you came so far from what you had to go through, but this is regular. We're not treating you anything special or anything. So, I embraced the criticism, and I embraced people treating me like everybody else. That that whole year I was really good at hitting. Kids were binking me left and right. I kind of had a mental block for a little bit of getting in the box because I was scared what they're gonna hit me with this time. I know it wasn't intentional or anything, but
you did get binked a lot.
Yeah, and I kept improving. I made really good catches. They finally realized, oh my God, this kid can actually hit. He's not special or anything. He's really good. He can actually field. He can catch. He can hit. He can hit to all fields. He can do everything.
Yeah. Westland baseball has been, it's been so good for you. So we got that fighting through the special needs. I heard you. This was really cool, and I told your mother about this because I heard you talk about the happiest day of your life. So go on and tell us about the happiest day of your life.
It is definitely one of the top 5 most happiest days of my life. It was May 22nd, 2013, 2 days before my 10th birthday. I was babysat. I was in 4th grade. I was babysat by Jeremy and Cassie Kokomeister, a really cute couple. They live in Florida now. My dad's still friends with them on Facebook. They're just a really cute couple. And my mom picked me up. It was in Summerlin. My mom picked me up, and she basically had this big grin on her face. She was almost in tears. She apparently met with my teacher, and she was like, "Lad, I have some great news. You're finally getting into regular ed next year in 5th grade. You're finally getting into regular ed without an aide, without any special support all the time. I'm just going to be treated like everybody else." And I was just over the moon. I was so happy. I was screaming. I was just, you couldn't bring me down. I was just like, oh my God. And just like, I'm finally getting accepted. I'm finally getting treated like everybody else, and no one's bringing me down or pretending that I'm so great anymore.
Okay, so that's really,
and
I totally understand how I haven't really understood that before, but I'm starting to understand it a little bit more. And I've asked you this question in the past, and it's, for me, going through all of this, as his dad, the biggest concern for me is, man, is he going to be all right? Is he going to be able to take care of himself? Now, obviously, we know he's going to be fine. He's going to have a great life. And then I've went back to this, and I asked you this question, is when did you know you were going to be okay? And it was that day.
Yeah, it was that day. I still, obviously a lot of people doubt me. I get bullied. I probably got bullied. It wasn't like the type where kids took swings at me. That did happen a couple times, especially in special ed, since kids couldn't control their anger and stuff. But I was rejected. And rejecting is definitely more painful, in my opinion, than getting beat up. Kids, I think they kind of knew I was different. I had some quirks and stuff, and I'm going to talk about this on Beyond the Truth. I'm not going to talk about it right now, but I was rejection, and kids basically telling me I was weird and stuff, and kids just kind of walking away from me. It was kind of like catching an invisible fly or something. I'm just using this as an analogy. You're trying so hard to catch those flies and make them love you, and it never really happened. But I am going to talk to you more about when I figured I was going to be okay and kids liked me and stuff. And yeah, some of the struggles I have right now are normal teenage things. I mean, my hormones are kicking in. I'm really interested in girls. I've always been a really big flirt. And my dad actually told me this really cool statement that changed my whole perspective. Like, I wanted a girlfriend. I wanted to ask girls out to, like, the homecoming and dances like that. This is, like, the first year that kids are actually going out to dances and stuff and getting the lovebirds on and stuff. And I asked a couple girls. I got their digits, and I wasn't creepy with them or anything, but they basically just kind of rejected me and just kind of, like, they were nice to me for a little bit. And that's kind of the problem I have with a lot of older girls, and kind of some younger girls loved me, but the girls that were my age were kind of snobs to me for some reason. They thought I was weird. They thought I was a bit of a creep, I think. I never said anything sexual. Never got dirty or anything. But they think I'm just a bit of a creep, I guess. So I was explaining all this stuff to my dad and my mom, and they basically told me it's okay to want to think girls think you're cute, and it's going to happen eventually. You just can't force it right away. And my dad told me, it was on the way from school. There's kids in school that, like, kind of make out in the hallways. They just kind of, like, hold each other's arms, kind of picking each other up, just never letting go of each other in the hallways, kind of making out in the hallways. And I kind of liked it, and then I was just really uncomfortable with that because they can't get away from each other. They're just lovebirds that just can't get off from each other. And yeah, I always thought that making out in the hallway thing was stupid. And what I was doing was basically wanting that to happen. I was basically, the only reason that I want a girlfriend is because you think it's normal that kids are dating, and you think kids are going to make fun of you if you don't, or something, if you've never been kissed or something. And I figured out I was basically wanting myself to be like those kids that were making out. And I was just like, man, you're right. That changed my whole perspective. I'm continuing to be nice to girls, obviously, and girls that want to pay attention to me. But that's definitely not the first thing on my mind, is to get a girlfriend.
Yeah, that's the one thing that you're no different than everybody else. See, everybody else, the normal kids, I'm going to quote the normal kids, and a part of this is a podcast, and then part of this is just your dad talking to you, and again, kind of getting this all out, everything that you're talking about, not being accepted, wanting people to accept you, wanting people to treat you like everybody else, and realize that, hey, I've got potential here. Give me a shot. Those are all common. Those are all common things that everybody your age, that most of the people your age struggle with. The difference is that you've had to fight yourself through this special needs program, which you've got a lot of resentment for, actually, in hearing you talk about it.
There were some things, I'm going to kind of interrupt you. There were some things I liked about special ed. We did a lot of projects and stuff, but especially in, like, first or second grade, I really resented it because I knew I was starting to know, hey, I'm different. And you're basically segregating me from society. Like my first couple years in elementary school, 90% of the time I was in that class where kids couldn't talk, kids were throwing fits and stuff. And I was just like, get me out of there. And just like, why don't you guys just give me a shot? And yeah, I mean, it was really tough, especially in the later years. especially in from like second to fourth grade. I was just like, why am I still here? Am I ever gonna get out? Am I ever gonna be considered normal?
Yeah, the thing that
it was basically being locked up in a segregation prison, kind of, because I wasn't really taught to be and that kids were rejecting me and stuff when I tried to talk to them. Like, they acted like they were better than me and acted like it wasn't
the normal kids.
Yeah,
the kids that weren't in special needs.
Some of the kids actually were really nice to me, but there were these. I'm not going to name anyone in particular. There were some kids, especially girls at the time. Girls were actually more rude to me than the guys were, especially the girls that were my age. They thought I think they thought I was a bit of a creep. They thought maybe, and especially the guys that they think I'm special and stuff, and I'm just like, I'm not. I want to be like everybody else. Is that not normal? Why is that considered weird?
Yeah. Again, I mean, all of this. I mean, just talking about it now really shows me more about how, what autism is social and communication, and everything that Lad's talking about is the communication. If he could have just told us, hey, I don't want to be in this class. If he could have just, I've told people about this. Most people remember, when their kid does the first, stands up or walks or all of the first. Man, I remember the first time I had a conversation with my son, and it was in 2011. I mean, it was you were 8 years old before you could have a true conversation, before you could talk about more than one thing. It is so amazing that I'm sitting here talking to my son about this, and you're getting upset with me because I'm cutting you off. I'm trying to walk you through it, but the reality is, man, if I could go back 8 years, 7 years, 9 years, and say that this would ever happen, that I'd be sitting next to my son and he would be talking to you guys perfectly, and doing it openly and honestly, I would be like, okay, sign me up, I'm in. Lad, the last thing, so the struggles that you're having now they're normal. They're 100% normal. They're no different than.
Excuse me. My struggles are basically the whole girlfriend thing. That's basically the tip of the iceberg. I mean, I had a little clique. I'm not going to name their names or anything, but I had a clique for about 2 years, and I'd hang out with them at lunch. I would talk to them. They would treat me well. They would joke around about stupid stuff, which all kids do, but I dealt with it. And basically, when I kind of took a step further, saying, "Hey, can I get your phone number? Hey, can we just hang out? And can we be buddies outside of school?" And for some reason, I'm kind of figuring this out. They thought I was creepy. They thought, kids joke about things like being gay and stuff. I'm the furthest thing from being gay. And they would kind of joke things like that with me, and they would basically reject me, saying, "No, you can't do that." And I tried to kind of explain to them, "Hey, you're being a dick," or something. I came really close to just going and just beating them up over it.
Beating the boys or the girls?
The boys.
Okay. Yeah, lad, that's I don't want to cut you off there, but I do want to talk to you as your father. Man, you got to let that. So what you're saying right now, the first time, is your biggest thing right now is you want a girlfriend so everybody else will accept you as normal, right?
Yes. And when my dad told me, I thought I just wanted a girlfriend because I liked hot girls and that I liked. I want to see what it was like to be in love, and that's something that I wish. I pray every day that will someday happen, and that someday a girl that's going to like everything about me and is going to tell and is just going to confess to me, hey lad, I love you.
Okay, hold on there, Mushy. Okay, now I get that too. So as I've told you your whole life that, hey man, you're great, you're awesome, this, that, and other, because you've struggled so much, you're like, man, I don't know if I should believe old Poppy. All right, listen, kid. Okay, all that's going to happen. All of that's going to happen. And the further you put it away from you, the faster it's going to happen. Okay, you're going to be a big, strong, handsome kid, and you don't have to worry about that. The faster you quit worrying about that, hopefully on the way out of this room, the better off you'll be. But that's actually liberating for me. You know, I mean, dude, you're a freshman in high school, and high school sucks. All of the things that you're going through are truly normal. I feel bad that you keep saying creep, because you're not. You're just trying so damn hard, bro. You're just trying so damn hard. Let's you know, I want to finish this up, and again, lad, you're going to have all the time in the world to get it out, to get your story out. And I'm not trying to take anything away from you, but let's finish this one up with you just talking about some of the people that. Do you recognize how far you've come?
Yes, definitely. Sometimes I still kind of question that. But when my parents would tell me all these things, I'm like, man, you're right. And I'm actually getting more criticism than I have my entire life because of how far I've come. My first semester in high school, I got a B average. I got like a 2.85 GPA, which is not that good, obviously, and especially the kids who have prodigy kids and like kids that are freaking rocket scientists and like want to go to summer school and love school and all that. And I did get a couple C's. I got a couple C's in geometry, and I got the highest C plus you can get in French.
Yeah, you got an A, 3 B's, and 2 C's, which would have been the best grade I have ever got in high school. I never got grades that good. And you're gonna do better. You're saying this is the first time you've gotten so much criticism because now you're just like everybody else. You're not special. So to finish this podcast up, lad, real quick, who are some of the people that kind of have been a big help to you and a big influence on your life?
There's definitely a lot of them. I'm going to start off with two extremely famous people, Randy Couture and Chael Sonnen. I've known Randy. Randy was actually one of the first people besides my family to come see me when I was born. And like I said, it was a couple weeks ago I talked about how I knew he was well known as a little kid, but I didn't know he was that famous. People would get so starstruck by him, and they would wag their tail off. They would be kind of jumping, grown men would be jumping up and down, oh my God, that's Randy Couture. I've known him and his kid Caden. Caden was actually my first real friend. We are a month apart. I think we were 29 days apart. As long as I've been alive, he basically, I don't have his phone number or anything. He currently lives in Bend. We don't, the last time I even seen his face, or I've even he's basically reached out to me was almost a year ago. It was in the summer. I really want to get reconnected with Caden, and basically just, I hope soon we will go to Bend or something, and I can talk to him how much he's big brothered me. He basically, He big brothered me in ways like he basically taught me how to be a daredevil. There was videos of me and him jumping off ledges in hotels and basically playing catch like bros. And he based like everything.
So Caden was the first person to accept you.
Yes, and everything he would do, I would try to copy him, and he had no problem with that. He never complained to his parents about that. He never complained, not once, and yeah, he was basically fine with that. He was 100% fine. He was a teacher to me. He was a teacher to me, even though we were the same age. He was teaching me how to work in society. Okay. And I love him for that as a friend. No homo, obviously, to this day. And I hope he and Randy somehow watch this. Randy and Trish should watch this. And I hope I get to see him again. And I hope I get to talk to him about some of the things he taught me. And I hope I can see him again one day.
You'll see him soon.
Another person that has really helped me was my RDI therapist, Andy Frank. I've known Andy since I was 2.5 years old, a couple months after I was diagnosed. He would come to our house every week, and he worked with autistic kids, and we basically just had heart-to-heart conversations about school, about life, about some of the things I'm dealing with. We played board games. He was really good to me. I remember him flinging me around, kind of like Randy and what my dad used to do. He would fling me around, kind of teach me some sensory input. He would tickle me a lot, and he would just he's really one of the I had a chance to talk to him. It was his wedding. He got remarried. I don't know what his girlfriend's name is or anything, but he got remarried, and I just called him. My mom told me to call him and reach out to him. I talked to him and basically told him how much he supported me in my life, and how much of a person that I am kind of related to him. And he started crying. He started bawling once I told him that.
Well, lad, I mean, me and Andy used to talk about all of because what Andy is Andy was a teacher, but he was a coach, and we would talk about all of the kids that he coached, that he taught, and you were his prize student. I mean, you have made it so far. So, in closing up, and I know this is a lot of stuff to get out real. A lot of real stuff that you can go into more detail on. But real quick, what would you want the world to know about autistic children?
Well, a lot of them, they may not be able to speak or even socialize, but don't treat them like they're special. Try to treat them as best as you can, no matter how much. Believe every word I'm saying. Listen to me. Listen to Lad C. Supernaw. I hope you are watching my lips and just listening to me right now. Just because your kid is delayed, just because your kid is not talking, just because your kid is getting bullied, just because he's physically weaker than other kids, they can still understand you. They never chose to be autistic. They never chose to have Down syndrome. They never chose to have whatever mental disease they're dealing with or condition, whatever. Treat them like everybody else. Try treating your kids. If they do something bad, treat them, discipline them, treat them like everybody else. And you just believe me on this. Believe me. just talk to your kids like everybody else. Don't just assume what they did. Oh, he's just playing around or something. I'm basically going to cut off from here, and I'll save all the rest of my stuff. I think I rambled a bit too much, but I'll talk a lot more on that on Beyond the Truth.
All right, lad, I wasn't cutting you off, but you just nailed it right there. I mean, that just moved me. You know, that was the sound bite that could go viral. You want things to go viral. You want things to that was it. Treat your kids like everybody else, because that is what they want. Deuces,
baby.